welcome to Photoshop Composition and Expert Professional Selections. Okay, to get started here, we're simply going to go to Google and type in the word full body and go to images. And down here on the right, we're going to take this image down here that's rather interesting. This is good contrast and color, etc., etc. So I'm just going to take this file right here and I'm going to click it. Now, Macintosh, we can control pop-up menu, control key, click copy, or right click Windows. Now we can also save this file to our desktop. We're not going to do that. We're simply going to copy the image. Now, for those of you that are new to Photoshop, anytime you copy something to the clipboard and you make a new file in Photoshop, it's going to make a new file the same size of what you copied. So here we are in Photoshop. I'm simply going to file new file, and we'll call this at the Beach Comp version 1. So understand that it says clipboard. So basically, when you copy something to the clipboard, Command C, Control C, Macintosh, Windows, it makes a new file the size of whatever you copied. So I just want to share that little simple technique with you. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to paste. Copy, paste, make a change, save a change. Okay, now so we're on the same page here. I want to share with you just to go to Essentials. And if you don't have Essentials selected, just reset Essentials. Everything basically is the same. Now I'm in Photoshop CS6, but we can do a lot of the techniques I'll share with you. Basically, it's Photoshop 4, Photoshop CS5, etc., etc. So it's a PSD file. Now, the most important thing to understand for those of you that are totally overwhelmed or perhaps new to Photoshop is that Photoshop is an image-based software, unlike Illustrator, which is an object-based software. Image means pixels, rasterization. Anything about the image itself can be found under the image menu. That's how Photoshop thinks. Now, Photoshop is kind of a unique program that it physically has a select menu. Now, typically in most programs, you'd find cut, copy, and paste and select all under the edit menu. Photoshop breaks that exception by putting a full select menu. So in addition to selecting, I can select none, I can select the inverse, I can select a color range. So again, get to think the way the software thinks. In this particular case, Photoshop is an image. Anything about the image is under the image menu. Unless you're physically selecting something, it's under the select menu. Anything about the layer is under the layer menu. So if you start thinking that way, it's a very simple way to master the program. Okay, so let's continue here. Now, what I typically do is I'm going to simply call this, let's call this body art. WC for working copy. Now, what I typically do, all my Photoshop files, because even though I can undo something a zillion times, I don't want to take that route. So I'm going to hold down the Option key, drag. Well, actually, I don't have to hold down the Option key. I was going to say hold down the Option key, drag. I can take it, drag it to this icon right here. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can hold down the Option key and drag. Option key, drag makes a clone copy. Either way, it works the same. So let's call this one body art original, and I'm going to choose to hide this, make a change, save a change. Now, important step here, I talked about this in previous videos. Okay, this by default is a locked background. It's a locked background, which means if I hide this, now how can I hide this layer without physically selecting the layer? What we can do is Option key, Macintosh, Alt key, Windows, Option click. So Option click is going to hide everything but that window. So I don't have to go click, 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 click. Option key, Option for choices, alternative choices, Windows, Option for choices, Macintosh. Illustrator, Photoshop works the same way when it comes to this. So Option click, I can see the layer. Option click, I can hide all the layers of what I had selected to begin with. So I just want to share with you a concept here because this layer is locked. So by default, if I make a selection here, I'm just in my ellipse selection tool. If I hit the delete key right now, it's going to bring up this content aware, content fill preference box. This can be found under the edit menu as well. Edit fill. Now understand something. Because the background is locked. Now how do I know it's locked? Well, A, because this is italicized. If it's italicized, it's going to stay locked. B is because I have a padlock here. So again, if you try to hit the delete key right now, it's going to basically bring up this dialog box. However, if I was to choose to unlock this, I can unlock this by either double clicking, or actually just double click and give it a different name. As long as you call it anything but layer 0, I can physically call this BACK ground. Now it's not going to be a locked layer. So very important step here before we move forward. Because it's not a locked layer, if I hit the delete key right now, it's going to delete to transparency. Now I am to have my selection feathered, so that's why you're seeing this feathered selection. If you don't want that to happen, then just click 0. Now notice that I didn't click here, I clicked here. Here. This way you don't have to click and drag. You can simply click there and type in 0. Now when I hit the delete key, it's going to delete, well, actually, because I had that set up from before. My mistake on that. So if I create a new selection and hit the delete key by making this background BACKGROUND. Again, you can call it background as long as it's not called layer 0. And I'm going to hit OK. So now the layer is not locked. So again, if I hit the delete key, it's going to delete to transparency. So I just want to share that very important step before we move forward here. So this background is basically, we can set the transparent or any color that we want to change it to. So as an example, okay, unlike other programs, in order to affect something, you need to select something. Photoshop's a little unique in the aspect of right now I have nothing selected. So I just want you to focus on this for a second. This will make a better user of the program. Right now I have nothing selected. I have no pixels selected, nothing. In fact, how would I deselect? Well, anything about the selection menu is under the select menu. Anything about the selection, I should say, is under the select menu. So Command D, I can deselect. Of course, I could just click off of it as well. Now, nothing's selected. So let's say as an example, I'm going to pick a color here. I'm going to pick this orange color. Orange is now my foreground color. Okay, foreground color, background color. I can make my background color by holding down the Option key and clicking. That becomes my background color. Now, if you're in your swatches and you hold down the Option key, it's going to cut. See, this can be a little confusing, so I just want to break this down for a second. If you're in your swatches, holding down the Option key is going to cut a color. If you hold down the Command key, that's going to pick a background color. Background color. Notice down here on the left, it's picking background color. But if in my color palette here, and I pick colors from here, then it is the Option key. So if I click here, that's foreground color. Option key is background color. I just want to point out those two discrepancies there. It used to be back in the old days, the Option key did give the background color. Now it's the Command key, Macintosh, Control key, Windows. All right. So now I have my foreground color, background color. Foreground color is orange, background color is blue. I can exchange that by hitting Shift X. We'll exchange the foreground for the background. By simply hitting the X key to exchange, X to exchange is just going to select background, foreground. Look over here to the right. Background, foreground, background, foreground. So here's how this is working here. The foreground color is the color I either fill or paint with. Fill or paint with. The background color is the color I delete to or erase to. So as an example, if I was in the E for eraser tool, I'm going to hit the right bracket key for a second, and I'm just going to increase the size of my brush. If I click right here, it's going to erase. It's going to erase to transparency. Okay, because I have it unlocked layer. Okay, this layer was locked, it would have deleted to background color. Okay, if I go to my Beaver brush tool, and again, I'm going to increase the size of my brush by hitting the right bracket key. So right now it's going to paint with what color? It's going to paint with my foreground color. My foreground color is now blue. If I want to paint with my background color, okay, then I have to hit the X key to exchange, so the foreground color becomes the background color, or the background color becomes the foreground color. So again, the foreground color by default is the color I paint with or fill with. So as an example, I have nothing selected. So if I simply hit the delete key, it's going to delete everything to transparency. Again, let's undo that, Command Z. In fact, let's go back a few steps. Command Z in Photoshop is simply going to toggle on, toggle off. However, Command Option Z goes backwards. Command Shift Z goes forward. Windows, of course, that would be Control and Control Alt Z. So if you want to go back through time here, Command Option Z, Command Option Z, Command Option Z. To go forward, Command Shift Z. Command Shift Z, of course, Windows, that'd be the Alt key. So again, I just want to share with you, I have nothing selected right now. So with nothing selected, if I hit the delete key, it's going to delete to transparency. However, if I hit Command delete key, it's going to delete. I'm sorry, if I hit the Option delete key, it's going to delete to foreground color. Okay, so I've this selected. So this layer is selected. Option delete is foreground color. Command delete, Command key delete is background color. Command delete background color. Okay, so if I simply hit the delete key, that's going to delete the layer itself by hitting the delete key. It's going to physically have nothing selected. So I just want to focus on that. I have nothing selected. So if I hit the delete key, now on most computers, there's the forward delete key and the backwards delete key. It works the same way on Windows or Macintosh. So I have nothing selected right now. So if I simply hit the delete key, it's going to delete that selected layer. If I hit Option delete, Option key, Alt delete, Windows, it's going to do the foreground color. If I do Command delete, it's going to do the background color. Okay. Now, if I want to get the best of both worlds, so let's say it's an example that you want to fill this non-selected, very important step here, non-selected, nothing is selected. I want to fill this with a shade of blue. In fact, here's my foreground color, blue. Let's say I want to fill this in with 38% blue. How could I do that? That's what I would use, Shift Delete. Shift Delete gives me my Edit Fill dialog box. So based on these choices, I can fill this with foreground color, background color. I can pick a color. Dialog boxes are your friends. So foreground color, normal at 35%. And I hit OK. Okay, how cool is that? Command Z undoes that. Now, if I tried that same thing, so let's do Shift Delete again, foreground color, blue, 35%, and I want to preserve the transparency, and I hit OK. So it's not going to fill this section in right here because I had preserve transparency selected. So what's transparent? Well, if I go to the E for eraser tool, this is all transparent. This is transparent. This is transparent. The checkerboard represents transparency. So therefore, if I fill this, but I say preserve or protect the transparency, that means it's not going to be affected. Therefore, it's not selected. It's not selected, so it can't be affected because I'm preserving the transparency. So we get this happening. Okay, so let's take this file and revert it to the last saved version before I change this background. So again, double click what's called background and save the file, make a change, save if change. So we're going to do some composition work, we're going to do some silhouetting of the object, etc., etc. We're going to maybe put some artwork on our body from, say, a graphic or a logo, etc., etc. I'm going to share with you my very powerful techniques based on my time-tested 22 years of doing Adobe Photoshop. So I'll talk to you in the next video.